Welcome to this guided series for new players to Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. In this part, we are going to be taking our first look at farming. Now, in this video, we're going to cover the history of farming in the game because it's quite important. Some theory related to how farming works, and that's going to include a few figures about production. And then to round the video off, we're going to actually build a farm out in this area and get it set up ready for in the next part, where we will be playing forward through the year, and we'll be taking a look at the sowing, growing and harvesting cycle as in the context of the fact that we've got seasons enabled. For that reason, that most of this video, the game is going to be on pause. The other reason why I want to keep the game on pause is the fact that it means I can completely ignore this side of the economy and focus completely on farming. Farming in Workers and Resources Soviet Republic is a fairly big subject, and I want to start with the history of farming because the farming's been around since the game first went into early access. Now, for the first few years, farming was quite a very simple process, and that's the reason why if you go out and do a search, you will find tutorials where such as how to make money by growing crops. Subsequent releases have actually cancelled that effect for reasons which I'll explain as we go forward. But I do want to talk about the history. As I say, the first release of farming was very much there was no seasons. What you did is you built a farm, you plonked down your fields, and it's also important to recognise that farming does not use any of your residential workers. It's automated. It's completely automated. So what that meant is that you could get your farm going. The crops will get sown, and then they'd grow, and then to be harvested. As soon as the harvest finished, the next cycle would start. So you'd have this continuous process of producing crops and from your farms. That was kind of spoilt when the developers introduced seasons. Now, the big difference with seasons was the fact that farming then became an annual cycle, with the sowing starting around the 4th of March and continuing to the beginning of May. Although I want to state that any field that actually had started sowing would always finish. And then you had a growing period which extended from, well, I won't say from a date, because as soon as a field is sown, it starts growing, and then that growing period would then extend up until about July. So the actual growing period would last several months. And it's also worth noting that that growing period appears to be fixed irrespective of the size of the field. And then once you get to the end of July, I think it's around the 17th of July, then the farm has the ability to start harvesting, subject to the condition that the field must have completed the growing cycle for the harvesting to start. Now, there's a whole sub-discussion there, which we will talk about later on. And then harvesting will then continue from the end of July right through the autumn up until, I think it's about between the 28th of November and the 4th of December, because I think there might be a temperature dependency in there. I know specifically around the 4th of December, the harvesting stops and it's automatically cancelled, irrespective of how far the harvester has got through the field. Any crops left in the field, and that's not crops that are yet to be harvested, and any crops that are stored within the field, I'll explain that as later on as well, are immediately lost. And then what you get is a dormant period from the 4th of December right round to the 4th of March. So what this model actually means is that during that harvest period, you've got to produce enough crops to get your industries that consume crops round right between the 4th of December to the end of July again, when the harvest starts again. Now, the final incarnation of farming started about a year ago in 2023, when the maintenance when the waste update was added to the game. And you can see here we're not actually playing with waste enabled, but as part of that update, they added fertilizer to the farms. And there's two types of fertilizer. Again, I'll talk about them in more detail later on. And what the fertilizer does is ensure that you maintain the fertility of your fields. So what if you don't use fertilizer, the fertility of your field could drop down to a point where there's no point actually sowing it. In fact, there is a cutoff that you can be set. But more interestingly, if you get the fertilizer right, you can actually increase your productivity of your fields up to 200%. So you can boost your crop supply, which you can get from a certain number of fields. So that is the history of the game. Now, the reason why I've kind of talked about that so much is the fact that there are lots of tutorials associated with farming and in Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. Many of them are out of date, and they depend, although that depends on what level the game you're playing on, because of course if you play with seasons disabled, you get the original model that when the game was first released plus fertilizer. And this is the important thing to remember, that no matter whether you play with no seasons or with seasons enabled, you've still got to deal with fertilizer, but it has to be dealt in a different way. And full disclosure, I now understand how fertilizer works when you play realistic mode, but because I've never done farming with just seasons enabled but not waste, so I'm not sure how fertilizer actually works within the context of the level that we're in at the moment. So this is going to be part learning experience for me as well. I suppose the next thing I want to do is talk about fields, and I don't want to put the fields down here. We'll just move off a little bit up over here. Now, in the game, there are three sizes of fields, which are found in this area here where it says food and alcohol. You get a small field, a medium field, and a big field. Now, the actual crop production from these fields is constant for all three field types, and that is with 100% fertility, you get 62.84 tons of crops per hectare. I mean, if you're not familiar with the metric system, don't worry. It's just all you need to remember is that the rate of crops are provided by area are fixed. Now, a small farm will produce 24.51 tons of crops, because it's 0.39 of a hectare. Now, the medium field will produce 98.06 tons of crops, and then the big field will produce 300.14 tons of crops at 100% fertility. Remember that, it's very important. And the way the fields actually work is, if I just put them down here, the reason we're out here, let me just get away from those rocks because that's just going to cause even more confusion. And what we'll do is we'll put the big field down there, and then if I put the medium field next to it, like this way round, what you'll see is that the fields actually work in thirds, roughly. I mean, there's a slight overlap. Maybe if I placed them a little bit more accurately and closer together. And then the small field is roughly the same, is about a third the size of the it's slightly smaller, like that. So you can see that each field size goes up roughly as a multiple of 3. If I click on this field here, you'll see that this field size is 4.1 hectares, and because I've put the field down, it starts with a fertility of 70%. You also see that each field has the actual phases marked out in here. So you can see the sowing progress, the growing progress, the harvesting progress, and then what you've got below here is something called the actual nutrient level. What this is, the level of nutrients in the soil, and what this does is slowly decline over time. And when you spread fertilizer, what you're actually doing is topping up this nutrient level, which then improves the fertility. The other thing I draw your attention to is at the top here it says workers in this field. Now, I've already mentioned that farming is a fully automated system. If you really wanted to go to subsistence farming, you could actually put a field down next to a residential area here, and the workers will go out and sow the field. They will also harvest it. The one thing they won't do, and that's related to where it says here, harvested crops ready to transport. This is a kind of an infinite storage of when the harvester is going along. It puts the crops into the field, and what you need is a covered hole to take the crops out of the field and deliver it to wherever they want to take it. So if you're running with workers doing the sowing and harvesting, you still need covered holes to actually remove the crops and take them to a silo for storage. Because if you don't remove that, when the winter comes, anything that's stored in this field will be immediately lost. And the other problem that I can see with this is the fact that because you've got fertility here, because you don't have tractors, you won't actually have the option to spread fertilizer. So now this type of farming is really down to what you could call subsistence farming, because if you leave a field fallow for a year, the fertility will build back up. So if you're really into deep immersion and you want to do an early start back in the 1900s and create a subsistence farm, feel free to do it. It's fun. I have done it. I did it once in a 1912 start, but that was without fertilizer. This is the information you get on a field. You can also see at the top here, you get a message saying this field has not been assigned to any farm. Field requires workers, mechanisms to harvest or sow. And it says, and the important message down here, it says, too late for sowing, winter is coming. So that shows the actual seasonal cycle. So we're just going to get rid of these fields. And other thing I will show you, once I've cleared these fields, I'm doing it the hard way actually, didn't I? Come here. Now, if I put a large field back in where the other one was, I put the field back in again, what you'll see now is the fertility has reduced to 10%. When you're placing fields, be aware that you want to be fairly accurate and think about what you're doing before you actually place the field, because if you pick it up and put it down, then you lose the fertility, which isn't a major disaster, but it means that you're going to have to work a bit harder to actually be able to build that fertility back up again. Now, what I want to do now is talk a little bit about farm location and where would you put them. Now, there's a number of criteria that you're looking for. The first one is you want a flat area, simply because the flatter the area, the easier it is to place the fields, although you can go up hills a little bit, which I will demonstrate. And of course, the next thing you need to consider is where your farm's going to go. And then the other thing you're going to need to do is move those crops to an area like this, where those crops will be given added value by being turned into something else. And that's probably a very good segue into the next point, which is don't raise crops to export to the customs shed. That was a very early ploy, and you will find tutorials that will say this is a good way to make money. It's no longer a good way to make money, for the basic reason that the actual value of crops now are you get 20.52 rubles per ton of crops, which sounds good, but the problem is if you don't have your own fuel manufacturer or electricity, if you're using rail, you've got to add on the transport costs to that. And then there's also the fact that the cost of raising the crops here is going to include the cost of manufacturing the fertilizer to get the fertility. Fertilizer costs can mount up, and this is a good example of where some industries look profitable on the surface, but they're not. And then, of course, another problem is that if you're not using trains, if you try to export crops with trucks, you're going to end up with a great big queue here. So the only reason you would want to build a farm is that you've got a way to ship those crops to a silo where you can actually feed into an added value industry. Just to give also another example is the fact that if I show you fossil fuels, crops has a habit of turning up everywhere. So like chemicals then feed into certain other industries, such as a chemical plant. There's also plastics. So you're far better off using those crops for those industries than actually selling it across the border. Returning back to positioning a farm, what you're looking for is a good way to get your crops from the farm to your actual industry. Now, you can use trucks, but it doesn't really work over a long distance. So this field area here is possible with the fact that this silo is so close, and this is one of the reasons why I actually kind of zeroed in on it when I was first looking at the map and choosing the starting location, because I saw this immediately as a potential farm, and with the fact that we had the industry in the middle and the town there, I knew that I could run it by using trucks. But of course, since then we've now built railway, so what we're going to be looking to do when we actually put the farm in is to connect it to the railway, because by far the most efficient way to moving crops and all bulk goods is by rail. So we've now got a location, it's reasonably flat. We could probably get I haven't actually practiced this, but I guess that we could probably get over 15 fields, possibly even 20 large fields in here. So we've got a lot of potential to make a lot of crops. Now, normally, if I was building out in totally virgin area like we would put out here, I'd put the farm down first and then build out from the farm. But because we built this rail line here now and we've got other infrastructure around which I've got to accommodate for, what we're going to do is put the fields down first. And we're going to start here. Now, I don't want to come into this area too much because I want to leave some space for any other industries that we're going. And of course, if I put my realistic hat on, so we would need areas here for recycling and processing waste. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a big field. And actually what I'm going to do is use this as an example, because I've already talked about the fact that the productive area of a big field is 4.81 hectares. But if I actually deliberately overlap this, because you can put fields over roads and some infrastructure, it won't go over buildings. There is a limit to how much you can put it over, but you can overlap things a little bit. But if you overlap, so I'll put this in here like that. What you'll see is I've clipped off the little corner here. I clip in here now, you'll see that the field size now here is 4.79 hectares, which is, we've lost about 0.11 I think, or no, about 0.002 I think from there. So we're going to get our first field here, and what I'm going to do now is kind of go out this way. In fact, I don't think I actually need this road now. One thing I do need though is I need to get a power. I wanted to put a power line through here. Well, we got space here. I could bring the power line round here and put substations here. So we're going to have to leave this square free. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to keep big fields going. We will be placing some medium fields. Just cancel that, zoom out. It pays to be a little bit there. And what you're looking for is the field to go green, because there's a little margin between. And if you put on F1, I think maybe we can line up like that. So that's 2. I don't really want to squash those power lines too much. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wow. Get a few more, 9, 10. Now we got to this kind of hilly area here. You'll see that the game is kind of half covering the field. Now, it's very difficult to tell whether you're going to lose anything from this field when you're going into terrain. So sometimes it pays to take a chance. And you can see this time it's actually gone up, and we've actually got the 4.84, and you can see here we've got the full 4.1 hectares. Now there is one piece of terrain that you've got to be very wary of, even in flat areas like this. That is, if I turn off the, you'll see areas of paved rock like this where it's been drawn on the land. And now if I put a field over this, you'll see it says too many stones, but if you kind of run round, oh yeah, you need to, it won't let you put the road over there, but what you can do is come in like this, and the game will let you build this. But if I do this, and it's still giving the impression, but the moment I do that, what you'll find is that your field is now reduced to 1.83 hectares, which is basically the same as a medium-sized field. Oops, sorry. Okay, we'll just remove that field. So when you are laying out a farm, pay attention to areas where you've got rocks, because they will impinge on your fields. So we've now got a whole line of fields here, and I think what we'll do next is actually put a road in here, and I want to kind of come off and run this way. You can get in very close, but firstly I'd like to leave a little bit of distance here to make sure the connections are a little bit better. We will drop down a little bit like that, and we're just going to run the road out all the way through here like that. I think that's far enough. We can take it further later on. Now, as I've already mentioned, I need to leave this space here for my power cables. So let's see what we can do here. Could put a big field in it that's overlapping there. I think what I might do is just tuck in a medium field here to give me a line for the big field, and I'll just overlap it a little bit where for there, and you can see we've lost a smidge there, but we've still got enough area here for the power cables. Now, if you're building a farm this way, an interesting fact is that to put in a large farm, this is this one here, which is what we're going to build because we're going to put so many fields in. A large farm is roughly the equivalent of a big field. In fact, I think what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take this road up here, bring that road down to there. In the past, what you would have done is when you were spacing out fields like this, you would just put them down and take them up and put them down again. But of course, we can't do that anymore. Just want to see if there's a 1, 2. Now, tip guys, just don't ever bother with small fields. I know. I think what we'll have to do is I want to put the farm roughly where these trees are, but I think what we'll do is I'm gonna put some medium. Hopefully, we can get 3 medium fields in here, because what I like to do, and this is a personal preference, but there is an argument for doing this, is I like to have medium fields very close to the actual farm itself. And as I say, I will explain that once we actually got the farm built. We will hook up that there, hook that there. I think I will build the farm and then build round it. Now, the next thing when you're building a farm is that if I show you here, the large farm here has only got an internal storage of 144 tons of crops. That is an absolute waste of time. So when you're building a farm, you always need to consider a silo. Now, the game does provide a really wide range of silos, ranging from 3,200 tons all the way up to 11,000 tons. Now, when you're considering the output of a farm, a bit of a calculation and coupled with a bit of optimism, because when you're considering the output of a farm, each one of these big fields can produce 300 tons at 100%, but there is potential for all these to go to 600 tons. But because this is seasonal, as I've already recently mentioned, is that while the crops are being harvested, they will also still be being consumed. So during the harvesting period, you've got to produce a surplus. So what you're really looking at when you're deciding to choose a silo is not so much is what's the maximum output from the farm is, but what your potential surplus will be once this silo's filled up and then you're still harvesting. So in some ways, it's a little bit of an educated guess. I mean, you could calculate it exactly, but it's now more complicated because of the fact that the fertility will give quite large differences in the amount of crops that you're going to produce. But and my general trend is to provide overcapacity rather than undercapacity without going too far. And my instinct is about 8,000. And we also need to provide a rail connection. We could get that power supply there. We could come back to here and then we'd use that power supply, but I think I'd rather have a separate power supply for the farm because we got a lot of other bits and pieces to put in. I quite like the idea of this, but I'm going to need to take the railway out the top there. I think how far out? I want some clearance. Okay, I think what we'll do is we'll come up to about there. Of course, we need the 2 road connections for the silo because it's a one-way system. But what I also would like to do, if possible, is have a cargo station, road cargo station down here, a small one. Now, normally I would use a mod, but in the spirit of the game, let's keep going. I want to put you in there. Now, the reason I'm putting a road cargo is I'll tilt it that way so we can get that road connection there. The reason I want a road cargo station in here is that sometimes there might be say a small industry which may need cargo. So what you might need to do is send a covered hole up there. There's also, by having this cargo station attached here, it provides an option that you can support the crop collection. Say, for example, you've had a bumper crop. You can then use a distribution office to support the covered holes that are inside of the farm to make sure all the crops are collected. So having a cargo station kind of attached to it is quite advantageous. So we got that there, and of course what we've got to do now is put in the actual large farm, and we're going to connect this up here. Now what you'll see on the bottom here is a pipe connection. Now this pipe connection can be used for two different things. It can be used to supply fuel to the farm, because you've definitely got to put fuel into your farm so that your combines and all the other gubbins that you're going to put into the farm don't go wandering off looking for a gas station. Just see if we can get that there. But there's also, you can use this connection to supply the farm with liquid fertilizer. So we're just going to build that there. And so we've now got the farm in there. There's also something that we can't use in here, is if I come into here, you see we got these factory connections. Now, if you're playing with waste enabled, there are dumps here. And what you can do is connect a dump to this, and then what you can do is deliver fertilizer to it. The problem with when you're playing with this without waste enabled, if I come to here, I show you the open store, you see it will list some waste, but it won't list fertilizer. So you've actually got to use the dumps, which are only available in there. I don't think there's no free version. A little bit of optimism there, but it's not going to work. So we've now got this here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put another road in up here. And of course, the next thing, we need to fill in this area with fields, but I think what I'd rather do at the moment is actually try and get the rail connection in now, because the rail connection is going to be very important. Kind of thinking that's a main road, but if I could don't like that though. Could take out the medium field, but I'd rather use it. I think if I come out like that, actually a smidge further, this shouldn't be a busy road, should it? It's not like it's going to be a main line. All we're going to get is the crop trains coming. I think what we can do actually is just put a normal level crossing there. Normally I'm very averse to putting level crossings in, but I think that because we got a highway there and we've got that connection there, I think we can manage the traffic if should it become necessary. Now the next thing we've got to put in is the crossover. Never put the crossover there, because crop trains can get very long. So what you want to do is just make sure that the crossover gives a little bit of leeway here. It's not very well planned, is it? What we're going to do is I'll remove that, and then we'll come into here. I think I can afford to let the game start to run a bit now. I can do the rest of the fields in the snow. I'll use it as an example of that you can do it. Here comes the snow. I know I was very close to the snow. What we'll do is we'll hook you out like that. That means we've got, of course I'm now losing the tracks in the snow. I think we can, certainly don't want to put level crossings here. I think we're going to start here. That's coming there. So what we're going to do is start back here, press the E key. We'll sneak that over. Right. Slow that down. And then we'll get the game to duplicate it, because we want dual lines in here like that. And then you can come to there, and hopefully you will connect up to there. Of course, what I do need to do is put the signals back in here while I'm thinking about it. And I could put the signals here because we're all going to auto purchase this track. If you're going to build it manually, don't put the signals in. Put the signals in after the track has been built. And of course we can, well, I'll do the rest anyway. And we'll just accept that. So we've now got the actual track laid. So we've now got 1, 2, 3 medium fields. What I'm looking for is about 6 medium fields, but it's not crucial. That's going to overlap onto that, isn't it? So I'm going to keep this area open for potential, what we call it, for potential distribution offices. We're going to have to put a gas station out here. Of course, we've got that. You're going to need the infrastructure for the power supply. So we've got 3 there. So that gives us 6 fields. And this is where I find out that so we could get, I think what we're going to do is that medium field we don't really need. So we'll take you out. Then we should be able to get 2 big fields in. I really miss the fact that you can't. I must admit, I do really miss the fact that you can no longer put fields down and take them back up again. Let's remove that little bit of road there, and then we'll see if we can get the. Now this big field will overlap slightly on this field, so it will suffer a bit of a fertility penalty. You can also see that it will be, the corner will be chopped off as well, and you can see that the fertility now is down to 38%, and the actual area is only 4.7, but I think we can live with that. And then what I'll do is I want to bring you this way. Now, one thing you can do, and this is a kind of the type of level that some tutorials get to, is that when you are planning fields, you angle the junctions towards the actual farm itself, which then speeds up access. But personally, I find that a little bit over the top, to be honest. One thing you will find is that the game has a tendency to default to mud roads when you come in here. So what that will do now is give us this area here, and what we're going to do now is we've got to finish off this area. So what I'm going to do is we're going to push the road out, keep pushing the road out this way. Keep is fairly close to this edge here. So we'll bring you out about there. And what we'll do is we'll finish off with big fields out here. The more the merrier. The way, if you're not sure about whether your farm can support fields, the strategy that I like to adopt is you put the maximum number of fields in, and because you can always remove fields at a later date. And then we could possibly get and sneak another field on the end here, but would I want to? Could probably get one here and lose a little bit. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. And then we can put you there, hook you into there, hook you into there, accept that. And then I suppose if I really, really wanted to, I could get another medium field out here. I think I'll just leave that as a bonus. So we've got a lot of fields in here. We've got, well, let me just have a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we've got 17 large fields. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 medium fields. A bit worried about that fire. Where's the fire? Oh, great. Well, fire crew. I always get a little bit twitchy when it comes to fire in the winter. Because, again, as I mentioned in previous videos, winter always exposes the weaknesses in your system. And especially when it comes to fire, if a fire breaks out in the middle of summer, your fire engines will get there. In winter, if the roads haven't been ploughed, then you won't get there. So we've now planned our farm. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to have a little bit of a kind of build fest now. I'm just going to come in here, and what I'm going to do is just auto build all this all the way through, just for the sheer heck of it. Actually, to be honest, we'll just get on batch ones. I think we're going to spend a lot of money doing this, but it needs to be done because the deadline, and again, this is something I haven't mentioned, is the fact that when you're planning a farm, you've got to remember that March deadline. So if you want to get a farm going, you've got to get it built, or at least the farmstead built. You can leave the silo for a few more months, but you need to get the core infrastructure ready before March the 4th, and that includes having the vehicles in there. So we're just going to build everything through here so that it's all connected. And we'll just do the railway track as well. Because, well, we're going to be needing trains to run things. So the farm's now being built. This has been built. We need to, and of course we click on here. What you'll see in the farm is, well, a great whole load of slots, which is where we're going to put our vehicles in. So the farm's being built, the silo's being built, and if we click on here, what you'll see is there's a number of messages. It says no tractors available for plant seed, no vehicles available to harvest, no trucks available to gather the harvest. It says no fields have been assigned. The reason for that is that it should have auto-detected. Okay, so why is it not? Oh, probably because we haven't built the road connection to the farm. Hazard of yeah, we need to do this. Now what will happen is that the field, the auto detect will be on automatic, and what you'll see is that the game will slowly spread out. I'll finish some research as well, so just pause the game. And one thing what the auto detect will tell you is that some of the fields aren't actually set up, so we need to make sure that all our fields are connected. And again, this is where working in winter can be a little bit of a pain in the neck, because you can't actually see. Now what I'm actually going to do is turn off the auto search and remove all the fields, and I'll come back to the reason for this in a little while, because I want to finish off going through what the information that's in the farm. And what you've got here below here is you've got all the slots. Now these slots are for your tractors, your harvester, and your covered holes. And then below that you see there's a thing that says minimum fertility. Now this is configurable. You can come in here and change it, but the default is 50%. What that means is if the fertility drops below 50%, the tractors will not go out and sow it. It would just stay fallow for the year. Now there's an advantage in doing that, because what can happen is if you don't actually do any work with that field for that year, the fertility will slowly build up by itself over time. And then you can see here we've got our export here for the number of crops. Below that we've got our oil tank imports, which we will need to set up. And then we've got liquid fertilizer and big garbage container import. And I'm going to come back to that because I've got a curiosity about that. And of course below that we've got all the other bits and pieces. The next thing I want to do is we've got to put a power supply in. In fact, what I am going to do is, what I'm thinking about it is come in here, and we're just going to reduce that right down to 0. Or not 0, is it just the minimum? Let's make sure it's, yeah, just the minimum. And then what I'm going to do is we'll put a, now I want to run the mains power that way, so I think what I could do is put the voltage splitter, well, we can leave on auto purchase for this. I'm going to put you there, and then we'll pick up 15 megawatts. We're going to have to backtrack a little bit, unfortunately, but that's okay. We're going to run you up to there. Oops, no. I really hate building in snow. Oops, no, still, why won't you? I think was it somebody published in the Steam workshop and asked what kind of attributes would you like to see in the game. And I haven't actually put anything in there, but one thing that's just come to mind is that I would really like a way that you could change the template sometimes from white. We'll build that to there. That should bring the power. Buildings without power supply. That's because I've messed up here. I'm always doing this. Promise I'm a lot more cautious when I'm doing this in realistic mode. I check and double check power lines because I've been caught so many times. And then what we'll do is we'll put a step down transformer here. Power transformer. I'm going to put you, stuck you in about there. So we'll put it opposite like that. We don't need a massive, we could probably go right down to, what's the lowest? 4 megawatts. Just run that to there. And then what I'm going to do out here is I'm going to put a gas station. The gas station is a little bit of an insurance policy with respect to the fact if we've got covered holes and other vehicles operating in this area. So I've got a bit of a habit of, oh, this is actually in range anyway, so we'll just put that there. That get built. Well, what I will do is remove this. We can distribute the fuel to that. So we've got our farm, we've got that there. And then what we're going to need to do is put in power supply. Probably just tuck it in here. I mean, we could I get along here? The road, I don't think that one's actually connected. I missed the field there. What we'll have to do is just add you. Oh, I haven't allocated the fields. Well, I'll come back to the power supply because what I want to do now is just talk about field allocation. Must admit, I got a bit distraction. I forgot. What you do is the medium fields you allocate first, like that. Then what you do is you come out and put a, what's it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, can't allocate that because it needs to be built. We'll allocate that. Now the reason you do this is that when the tractors go out in March, they will follow the sequence that's been defined in here. Now a feature of tractors and harvesters is that they will do a field, and then if they got fuel they will go on to the next one in the list. So what you can do is you could go and do the medium field, and then quite often if you're a little bit sneaky it will go on and do the large field that's nearby, because they've got to have enough fuel to get to the field. So what you can do is get 2 fields done in one cycle. Now another advantage we're using doing the medium fields first comes back to the actual growth cycle. Now the growth cycle is constant, and the harvest can't start until the growth cycle's already finished, as previously mentioned. By doing medium fields first, you get the shorter growth cycle, which means that when the time comes, which is around the 17th of July, and with the medium fields being done first, there's a very strong possibility they will be ready for harvesting when the harvesters are ready. So what you do is you get a bit of a jump on the season, where if you do big fields, the harvesters are ready to go, but there's no fields ready for them. Truthfully, once you've done this in a circle, what you can do then is just switch on the auto search and let the game just do its stuff. Eventually it will. If I let the game run, it should start to auto detect. Nope. Okay, game, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a shove. Yeah. And then we'll just do that. And what you can do is check that all your fields are a kind of auto selected. Where you see these dots, what the dots mean is that the field has been partially clipped, so it's not complete. So we've now got that set up. So what we can do now is get back to what I was doing, which is putting in the power supply. Just let the game run, because we need to play on to get to March so that we can get everything going. going to go there. Just put a mud path in there. Where always use these. Actually, I was going to go the other way, wasn't I? Oh no, we'll just go this way. It's not like it's... Then we can run down here. It's not like these pylons are taking up any space that needs to be done. It's got power. Just make sure we got power there. Right. So we've now got connections to there. So what it means now is what we can do is come to our fuel depot, our fuel trucks here, and we will allocate you the farm to there and the... Oh, sorry. Gas station, sorry. And what that would mean is that we will deliver fuel into here. Right, we've now got this set up. The next thing I want to bring in case I forget, is we're going to come into here. We're going to find our... Oh, great. We've only got one type of tractor with a speed of 17. Not much better like this, because of course we're in 1962. What I'm going to do to start with is bring in 6 tractors. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tractors. The next thing we need is a harvester. This one's a little bit better. We're going to get 6 harvesters. 4, 5, 6. They're probably not going to be enough, especially with the speeds that we got here. They're due for a start for the demonstration purposes. Then of course what we need is covered holes. What you need more with covered holes is capacity. And we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you can equate the number of covered holes to the number of harvesters, but with a big farm, because of the traveling distances, it pays to get a few extras. Now, so we've now got our vehicles assigned to the large farm. If you want to have a more detailed overview of this configuration, I would recommend watching Bill Joe's video. He's done a very good tutorial on optimizing farms, and he's done actual calculations on the number of tractors and harvesters and covered holes in relation to the number of fields that you've got and all sorts of things. Personally, I just tend to do it on an ad hoc basis, and I certainly don't want to swamp you with lots and lots of kind of split hair information. So that's the vehicles. Now that leaves the one thing that I am a bit curious about. Can we auto purchase liquid fertilizer? We can auto purchase liquid fertilizer. This is the mystery that I alluded to at the start of the video, because organic fertilizer or just fertilizer is tied to the waste release. If I come over to here, because I was looking at this when I was doing a bit of prep for the video, and I couldn't, when I came in here and clicked on here, and I was looking at the no, sorry, not here. Yeah, here, yeah. And I was looking at this, I couldn't find fertilizer listed in here. And when I went to the economy, I couldn't find fertilizer listing in here, but it does show is that I could buy a garbage truck. I'm just going to buy one of these, and then, wow, okay, so fertilizers appeared, but we got no price for it. So what I want to do is, we should be able to deliver the bulk is already assigned. Okay, that's already assigned because we were delivering fuel here. Where's the farm? And that's actually showing fertilizer. Okay. I'm really curious about this because it seems to be missing. Although, to be honest, I'll be completely upfront. Where are you? Now that doesn't look right. That says that I've paid 12 rubles for 6.5 tons of fertilizer. Oops. That's really cheap. I'm just gonna let this guy drop off what he's doing. Of course, he's only doing a nice speed of 38 kilometers an hour because it's all covered in snow. But I think I'm going to move this guy to another distribution office. I want him to drop off first, and then we'll move into another distribution office. Right, pause the game. Now, the reason I'm moving him to another distribution office is because I put him in the distribution office that was distributing fuel because I was doing a test. And that is set to 30%. And what I want to do is we're going to change you to there. And that gets cleared. Right, so just going to wait for him to move in. But what we can do now is actually auto purchase. And I'm going to do that just to begin with, just as for demonstration purposes. We're going to auto purchase the liquid fertilizer. Simply because the way the fertilizer works is that the organic fertilizer is spread during the winter, although it's a bit late because we're already on the 14th of January, and the liquid fertilizer is spread during the growing season. Now, I'm not going to talk any more about that in this part because it's far more easier for you guys to actually see what is going on. But what I do want to do is, where are you? Here comes Chugaboom. Put him in here. Okay, so what we'll do now is, what is this route? What are you guys actually doing? I need to look at this. That doesn't look right, but I'll sort that out off camera, guys, because it's got nothing whatsoever to do in here. We're going to tell them to pick up fertilizer. I mean, the prices that you're paying for this, you might as well just come in here and say that we'll set it to 90%. Never set it to 100% because it will actually, what's the capacity? It's 135 tons, so 90% would be really good. That would get him a second truck to fill up. That's a bargain price, that is. If you're playing on the full release, that might be a bug that will be subsequently fixed. So what we're going to do there, and what we're come back to here, and what I'm going to do is, it's probably going to cost a fortune to do this, but oops, go back up to the top here, come to there, and what we're going to do is import the maximum amount. The reason I'm bringing in so much, and you can see it's going to cost quite a lot of money, is the fact that when a tractor goes out to spread fertilizer, it will go and spread it on a field, but it won't go back if it runs out of either liquid or ordinary fertilizer. So what you need to do is make sure that this has got plenty in here. And of course there is an option to manufacture our own synthetic fertilizer, which is down here, but that needs chemicals. Maybe we'll look into that going forward, but I think in the short term it's just simple to use the auto purchase. And of course if you're not using auto purchase, you'd have to do exactly the same as what we got with the fertilizer here. The big threat we've got left now is actually fire, but we've got the farm set up, we've got the fields laid out. Just double check that they're all allocated. Whoops, no. Yeah, we've got all the fields going, so we're now ready to start the next cycle, which will be on the 3rd of March. So this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting. Any questions, comments, feel free to chuck it in the video description. What I will do is play on until the end of February. So in the next part, what we'll be doing is looking at what actually happens when the sowing and growing and harvesting cycles actually work. But until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.